who have joined this webinar today being organized by PUTA. And I would especially like to welcome Professor Nandu Nandkishore and thank him for taking out time from his busy schedule for this interaction. Let me first give a brief introduction of the speaker, who is a renowned keynote speaker, a consultant, a trainer, and a business guru. Dr. Nandkishore has a huge experience as CEO and Executive Vice President for Nestlé in Asia, Oceania, and Africa. He has been Global CEO for Nestlé Nutrition. He is a Professor of Practice, Indian School of Business, and Guest Faculty, London Business School. Professor Nandkishore has expertise in turnaround situations and crisis management, leadership and coaching in the new tech-led and sharing economy. He also has expertise in consumer engagement through experiential marketing, neuromarketing. Professor Nandkishore is also non-executive director and consultant of several reputed companies. Friends, you would recall that a little while ago we had a webinar where Dr. Sandeep Goyal made a presentation, a brilliant presentation, and that was also on how to cope with the new situation. And I'm very glad that Professor Nandkishore has chosen a very apt topic for his talk, that is teachers as leaders in this new reality. So I'm sure that we are going to benefit a lot. And Professor Nandkishore, thank you very much. We're very fortunate to have you. I know you have a brilliant record, a very illustrious career, and a wonderful reputation. And we have a very large number of participants at the moment. Around 200 have already joined in. So let's listen to Professor Nandkishore. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Can you hear me? Is the audio okay?
Yes, it's perfect. Perfect.
Okay. I see there's some people raising hands. Maybe you can respond to them later.
Sure, sure.
So let me. I might ask you for assistance, or Arun G for assistance eventually in managing the participant profile. Okay. So thank you and good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here talking to you today. Let me start by quickly reintroducing myself. My name is Nandu. I'm 62 years this year. I am a graduate of IIT Delhi and then of IIM Ahmedabad. I've worked in industry for 38 years, mostly outside of India with Nestlé at different times. I was the managing director for Nestlé in Asia, the managing director for Nestlé in the Philippines, the global managing director for Nestlé Nutrition, and then the managing director for all of Asia, Africa, and Australasia and the Middle East. After retirement from Nestlé, I teach indeed at the London Business School. I teach at the Indian School of Business, where I'm a professor. I'm a consultant, and I'm on various company boards. I've also started a YouTube video channel. And if you go to YouTube and you check Insights with Nandu, if you search for that, that's my channel. So it's just starting now. So I will be periodically posting short lectures over there for you to listen to. I see some people in the comments are saying the audio is not okay. Is that a general problem, or is it okay for you?
We'll check. I would request all the participants to mute their audio. So as we move on, let's see. It shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you, Piyush, for confirming that the audio is okay. So that's good. So today's session, let me start by doing some screen share, and then we'll start to talk and explain to you how it goes. So we are going to talk about teachers as leaders in this new reality. And basically, the way I'm going to structure the whole session is as a discussion more than as a lecture. Now, given the limitations of online interaction in webinars and using the Cisco, we really can't have discussions like you would have offline in a classroom, for example, or in a live session. So some of the discussions I might ask you to give your comments through the chat box so that I can then take those comments and build on them and respond to them. But come and ask those questions at the right time. So the idea is not for me to give a lecture, but really create a learning community where we learn from each other how the role of the teachers is evolving in the new reality, and what are our leadership requirements that people expect, that we expect from ourselves. So the agenda, I'm going to talk about 3 topics. First, I'm going to talk about what is this disruptive change that is upon us, and I will not focus on COVID. Also talk about COVID, but I'll talk about the more underlying disruptive trends that we see happening. And what is the implication for jobs and for skills of the future first. Then I'll talk about what is the leadership challenge in dealing with disruption and how to prepare the organization for change. Finally, we'll talk about and discuss what is the implication for education and for educators. I plan to spend roughly 10 to 15 minutes on each of these 3 topics, and then open up for more questions. Within these 10 to 15 minutes, I will have some short discussions, but the main questions will come after I cover all 3 topics. So if that's okay with you in principle, let's proceed. A couple of years ago, I came across this chart published by the Standards & Poor rating agency. Now, my perspectives, let me be specific. My perspectives are starting from the world of business and coming from that direction into leadership and into education. So a lot of my examples will come from the business world, because that is what I am most familiar with for the last 40 years. So chart by the S&P basically is an assessment of the average company lifespan of the 500 biggest companies in the world. And in fact, the chart doesn't show it, but if you take the chart back to 1920, in 1920, the expected life of a Fortune 500 company was 90 years, 90. And by 1960, it had fallen to 60 years. Today, it has fallen to an average of 15 years. So what's happening? Is this true? Is this even real? So it's a very, very, very good question. And basically, what we have to hear when we come up with something like this, the first question to ask is this real? Is this fake news from CNN, or is it real news from Fox News? I mean, what is it real? The first question is to challenge the data itself. And when you challenge the data, let's look at the information. So you're all familiar with the Kodak company, which created photography right through, starting in the mid-19th century, dominated the 20th century. Where is Kodak today? Gone, doesn't exist. When I started working in 1980, there was a joke. In those days, the Cold War was very, very big. There was a joke of there's a Soviet general who goes to America and says to the Americans, we can win any war with the Americans. All we need is 3 of your generals. So the CIA got very excited and said, which are the 3 generals who are going to be defectors? And he said, no. Give me General Foods, General Electric, and General Motors, the 3 big companies that dominated American industry at the time. Fast forward to today, 50 years later. Where is General Foods? Doesn't exist anymore. General Electric, almost gone. The company which invented the air conditioner, the refrigerator, the vacuum cleaner, and household appliances the world over, almost gone. And the dream destination for all of us engineers who graduated at the time almost doesn't exist. General Motors has gone to the brink, has come back, and it's an open question how well they'll be able to survive. the move towards electric cars and self-driving cars and the new developments like that. So something is changing. Yeah. And in fact, it's no accident. You look at the top 10 companies in the world, and you look at names like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. These companies did not exist 30 to 40 years ago. Microsoft did exist, but was relatively recent even in that scope. So the power of the world's biggest corporations and the power of the world's wealth is being created by new ideas as the old companies and the old ideas are disappearing. Size is no guarantee to long-term success. So what's really happening? A couple more examples. Arguably, we could say that the 20th century, and I'm rounding off dates just to prove a point. So I know I'm making assumptions on dates. The 20th century saw more technological change than the 50,000 years of human history before that. So before that, you had agriculture, wheel, and fire as the big human discoveries or inventions. Suddenly in the 20th century, you had motorcycles, you had bicycles, you had cars, you had planes, you had rocket ships, you had telephone, you had radio, you had television. And suddenly the world was a very different place and a much smaller place than it was in ever before, any of the centuries ever before. I will open for questions at the end. So there will be time for questions. And in between, I'm going to ask you some specific questions for discussions as well. So please hold your questions till the end. And arguably, this pace of change has accelerated. So the first 20 years of this century have seen more technological change than the 100 years of the 20th century or the 50,000 years before. Today, we cannot imagine life without social media, without WhatsApp, without Facebook, without the smartphone. And yet these did not exist in the last century. I don't know how many of you actually go to bed with your smartphone. Globally, the number is something like 82, 83% of people who go to bed with a smartphone, and they wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is they turn to their smartphone and look at what news there is before turning to the other side of the bed and saying hello and seeing if somebody's there or not. So this is millions of years of human evolution that has been changed in 20 years. And yet in 1998, there were no smartphones. There was one company that had more than a 50% global market share of mobile telephones. You know which company that was? No, it was not Nokia. It was Motorola. Motorola had more than a 50% global market share of mobile telephones in 1998. Technology changed from analog to digital. It took that change 12 months. In those 12 months, a new company came. Until today, in the home market of Finland, the brand name Nokia means rubber boots. Their core competence was how to make rubber boots. And they went into this new technology. They became world number one. How long did their leadership last? Less than 10 years. Company closed down. Today, it's Samsung and the Android phones, the iPhone that dominate the smartphone market. So there is dramatic change happening, and this change is ever accelerating as we go through time. So fundamentally, if we go back and we look at lessons coming from the world of natural history, what we can say is really the following, and it's a learning from Charles Darwin. Okay? What Charles Darwin said, at times of great change, it is not the strongest or the most intelligent who survive. It is the ones most adaptable to change. Okay? If a dinosaur had to do a market research and say which skills you really need to dominate and survive in the world, the dinosaur would have said size, strength, maybe intelligence. But none of the dinosaurs survived. The ones who survived were the ones who were able to adapt to the climate change caused by the impact of the asteroid on the Yucatan Peninsula. So the first lesson, particularly because we are living in an era of disruptive change, where there's change is ever accelerating around us, forcing us to fundamentally alter all behaviors, social, business, and societal behaviors. The first lesson is this: change or die. The only choice we have today is to be the disruptor or the disrupted. That's the only choice. When I started working, we were told the mantra was, if it ain't broken, don't change it. Today it's different. Today is, if it ain't broken, there's somebody else out there working very hard to figure out a way to break your model, your business model, your education model, your policing model, whatever. So you better be the first one to find a new way and a more efficient way, a better way to fulfill the need that you are satisfying. So it's disrupt or be disrupted. That is lesson number one. Let me move and ask you a question. The self-driving car, and the question is on your screen. I'm going to go back and ask you this. So the self-driving car, and we all know, this is something very interesting. We all know that India mein self-driving car kabhi nahi ho sakta. That we know. You know, I know. We just in the same way in 1996. When we got expatriated and we left India and we went outside, talking to people, they said, India mein mobile phone kabhi nahi ho sakte. Dimag kharab hai? Yeah, 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees ka mobile phone kaun kharidega? Today there are 800 million mobile phones in India, okay, including smartphones. So yes, we know self-driving cars kabhi nahi ho sakte. Understand. Let us pretend ki ho jate. Kaise galti se smartphone bhi ho gaye na? So let's pretend ki self-driving ho jate. And by the way, in the US, self-driving cars are already there. You know where? On the long long trucking routes, because young people today, the average age of a trucker in the United States is 59 or 60. The young people who wake up in the morning, they don't wake up and say, yes, I want to be a truck driver. No, they want to be something else. So there are no young truck drivers. So the long haul, a lot of it already today, self-driving vehicles. That's already happened. So assume it happens in India. So the very quick exercise I would like to do in a discussion, since we can't do a discussion, I'll ask you to respond in the chat box. What are the industries that are going to get disrupted? What comes to your mind first? Just put it out there in the chat box and let me see what messages come up over there in the chat. Hospitality. Yes. Good, Nikhil. I'll talk about that. Let's talk about more. I hope we opened the chat for everybody, Arun. Automobiles, obviously. Yes. Tourism, hotel. Yes. Very good. Keep going. A few more examples. So let me explain to you what people are saying. Okay. So let me restart here my screen share and start to write down on a screen here. What people are saying is basically this. The obvious thing that people are saying that's going to get disrupted is, first of all, the car industry, the auto industry. That's an obvious. Because if there are self-driving cars, fewer people need to own cars. Therefore, the number of cars will go down. Then the people who said hospitality, so if there are self-driving cars, today you cannot drink and drive. There are specific laws against drinking and driving. What you're saying is when you have self-driving cars, a lot of the dhabas will go out of business. A lot of the roadside restaurants will go out of business, and cars will become entertainment. This is what you guys are saying. Cars will become entertainment devices. Places where you watch movies, you can have a drink, you can have food. The whole ambience and purpose will shift. Let's keep going. If there are self-driving cars which are actually managing their own repair, and they're getting repaired before they break down, the entire garage business will be affected. Forgive my handwriting. This is not easy to write on this. screen. The garage repair business will be affected. If self-driving cars don't have accidents and they're talking to each other all the time, you won't need so many traffic lights. Yeah, and maybe you won't need so many traffic cops. If accidents decline, you will have changing insurance needs. Yeah, if accidents decline, you will have changing use for hospital emergency rooms. You see how it's building. If cars don't have to be parked in the center, if you have a self-driving car and you don't have to park your car in the center of a town, then all of a sudden, in the center of town, you don't need parking spaces. So real estate, so those parking spaces can be repurposed for offices or something else. All of a sudden, real estate starts to get disrupted. So a lot of these industries will basically start to get disrupted. And here's the interesting thing. And the question is this. If one change, which is self-driving car, and you can argue, debate, ye hoga ke nahi hoga, nahi, aise nahi hoga, waise hoga. Yeah, fine. That's not important. What is important is that one change, which is the self-driving car, can actually trigger so many disruptions, both negative and positive. Some positive disruptions will be the IT industry because they will be managing all the communication for all these cars as growing businesses. Negative disruption, drivers will be out of jobs. Worldwide, there are 70 million drivers who will be out of a job. And this is coming in the next 20 years. Okay, it's going to come faster than we think, in the same way that mobile phones came faster than we think. The dabas, etc. So almost every single part of business gets disrupted. Here's therefore the big question. This is only one disruption. Self-driving cars, only one. How many such disruptions do you think are out there today? Thousands. Okay, so the amount of disruptions that you have seen in the last 20 years is nothing compared to what you're going to see in the next 20 years. And what implications does that have for us in business and in society? That's the important question to answer. Okay, so let's get. So as Peter Drucker said, and Peter Drucker was the management guru of the 20th century who died at the age of 92 a few years ago. Until the last day he was writing. And he famously said, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, but to act with yesterday's logic. So what does this mean for us? And what is the implication of the ongoing disruption coming from technology or economics or whatever else? What does this mean for jobs and skills of the future? What are the jobs and skills of the future? Now, ideally, I'd like to do a discussion, but since time is limited and the format doesn't allow the discussion, let me explain this. Already today, a lot of the manufacturing jobs worldwide are getting automated. I have been to factories in India that are completely roboticized. Okay, robots don't go on strike, they don't ask for salary increases, and they don't make mistakes. So it's a higher capital cost, but in the long term, over 8 to 10 years, they're actually a lot cheaper. So manufacturing is getting roboticized. Blue-collar jobs that we are so proud of in India. Remember, if I can describe a job in 8 to 10 steps in an algorithm, if this, do that, if that, do this, if I can describe it in 8, 10, 20 steps and send it down a wire to Bangalore, then equally well, I can write a software program to do it right in the place where the job is required. So more and more office jobs are disappearing to software bots. Today, one of the best legal jobs in the world is not the job of the lawyer, it's the job of the paralegals who assist the lawyer in doing the research and the discovery. That is getting automated. Patent search getting automated. Okay, it's not people doing it anymore. So a lot of jobs that can be automated, even in the office, will be automated. And all this is even before we have talked about AI. So point is, a number of the jobs that we have today, that are being done today, will basically disappear. Now, when these jobs disappear, what are the jobs of the future? This is very important, because then there comes an even bigger question later. And here is lesson number 2. And very simply put, the jobs of the future are what computers cannot do, or what humans can do better than computers, ideally working together in teams. So many of these jobs, for example, will be part-time jobs, right? What is called gig economy. Already, the biggest industries in India have shifted to part-time jobs, and you don't even realize it. The biggest industry in India, construction, entirely project-based, part-time jobs. Yeah, consulting, part-time jobs. Software, tech, part-time jobs. When I say part-time, they're all project-based assignments. So jobs like I had, where I worked for 30 years with one company, is going to get increasingly rare going forward. Apart from the move towards project-based jobs, more and more people will be working on collaborative teams which work across borders, across different cultures, across genders. There will be a lot of new jobs that will be created, and we don't even know what these new jobs are. So how can we prepare people for these new jobs? We know that creation of the new technology and science to make old jobs obsolete will be a growing need in the future. There will be very few. There will be the elite, scientifically and technologically speaking, but there will be just a very few of them. Creative pursuits, we see this happening already, whether it's in the sphere of arts or paintings or sculptures, will start to grow. Vocational businesses, you will always need the electrician, the plumber coming home to fix things. We live in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, I tell you, when we call the electrician to come, he drives up to the to the house in his BMW, and we feel very poor because we have a Honda parked next to his BMW. Yeah, so vocational businesses will. In India, we look down on labor with the hands. I know we think that's inferior, but in fact, that's going to be a segment of the economy that is continued to go see job growth because computers cannot do it. We will see growth in sports. And you look at the fastest growing industry, forget COVID-19 for a bit. You have the Indian Premier League for cricket, you have the Indian Football League, Indian Soccer League, Indian Badminton League, Tennis League, Kabaddi League, Hockey League, you name it. There are these sports leagues coming up, lots of money going into sports, one of the fastest growth industries. Entertainment, a huge growth industry. News as entertainment. So when Arnab Goswami goes up there and says the nation wants to know, he creates a meme that everybody is then familiar with. And he has to be hyper all the time, because if he loses any audience ratings, he loses his next assignment, his project. So he has to always be hyper. That's his positioning, right? Politics, big growth industry. Religion, and we see there's a big growth industry as well right now around. So key lesson number 2, the jobs of the future are not the jobs of yesterday. There will be some high-tech jobs, and the jobs will require different skills, and there will be a lot of jobs fundamentally which computers cannot do. Okay, that brings us to question number 3, and lesson number 3. How should we prepare our youngsters for this new disruptive reality? What skills do they need? Again, we don't have the time to discuss this in small, so I'm going to move and say the number 1 skill we need today is learning agility. Because in the past, I studied up to university, then I said, no more learning. I've learned what I had to learn. Ab aur padhai nahi karni. Ab maine seekhna hai. But if everything I have learned has become obsolete in the next 5 years, I have to be able to learn new skills. Learning agility, one of the most important skills we need to teach them in university is how to learn. How do we rekindle curiosity in people, like the kind of curiosity small children have? How do we engage their creative skills, okay, instead of only their memory skills? How do we teach them problem-solving skills? How do we teach them teamwork? How do we teach them emotional intelligence? In India, Because of the nature of the meritocracy we have created, which has had fabulous results and is very, very good, we have created a culture which is an exam culture, and there's a very strong competitiveness culture. So Indians are great, very intelligent individualists. And that was perfect for yesterday's economy, the economy where, frankly, I had a fabulous career. Tomorrow's economy, that's not going to be enough. You will still need to have high IQ, but you will need to be able to work in teams collaboratively and making new creative solutions. So are we teaching people with our education system for those skills? Or do we have a gap that we need to bridge in our education system? I leave you with the question to think about this. Moving then to the second part of the session today, which is the leadership challenge and dealing with disruption. Kind of disruptions happening all the time. What responses work when something gets disrupted, when your industry gets disrupted, when your company gets disrupted? What can you do? There are basically two responses to disruption. One, a response that treats it as a threat. Second is a response that treats it as an opportunity. A threat response typically says, I retreat to my comfort zone. So Kodak, the inventor of photography, when the digital disruption happened, they actually tried, Kodak was the one who invented the digital camera. And they tried in 1991 to set up a completely independent division to focus on digital photography. 8 years later, they closed it down, said there's no way to make money from digital photography. And they said, we retreat to our core, printing photographs on paper, and we're going to be the leanest, meanest, cheapest competitor out there, and we will not let Fujifilm win. 10 years later, Kodak had disappeared. Cutting costs and just focusing on a survival response, which is the threat response, is not sufficient. The second response is the opportunity response, embracing the uncertainty, investing in R&D, investing in news. The trouble with embracing the uncertainty response is you don't know if the disruption is going to succeed or not. And in chasing this new rabbit, you may forget the fabulous current business model that you have. And in losing sight of that, you may just lose that as well. So now you'll say, look, Professor, what are you saying? You're saying there is only two responses possible, threat response and opportunity response. And you're saying neither of them work. So what do we do? What are you saying? What I'm saying is this. The Chinese have a fabulous word for disruption or crisis. It's called Wei Qi. And Wei Qi has two symbols. The first symbol means danger. The second symbol means opportunity. And here is learning number 4. A successful response to a crisis views the disruption as a threat and as an opportunity. It's both a threat and an opportunity. So that is lesson number 4, which is very, very important. And that leads me to lesson number 5. One of the key responsibilities of leadership is to prepare the organization for change, because change is inevitable. It's the one thing that is a constant in our lives, ever accelerating, forcing us to relearn how we meet the need that we exist for and do it better than anybody else. And if you are not changing, you're dying. Lesson number 1. So this is one of the key responsibilities of leadership, and one of the key responsibilities of teachers is to prepare society and our students for change and to survive and prosper in this new disruptive reality that we are in. Parents often are not equipped to do this because they are not exposed to the kind of ideas and thinking that we as teachers are exposed to. So how do you prepare an organization for change? Basically, you have to, first of all, scan the horizon, identify what are the various changes out there that are happening, prepare for, and you don't know which of these responses is going to work. So you may have to respond to several of these disruptions at the same time. For each of them, you need to have a threat response and an opportunity response. An example which I forgot to share with you earlier in the threat and opportunity thing. Kodak focused on the threat response and they lost. Fujifilm, which was the biggest competitor, said, we'll also do a threat response. We will not let Kodak compete us in the paper business. So we'll protect the paper business. And whatever money we have, we divert it to finding new opportunities. Today, Fujifilm is a successful $20 billion global multinational, a leader in medical imaging, a leader in thin film technology, and in paper-based photography. Kodak doesn't exist anymore. So you need both responses for each disruption. You need to get buy-in from the stakeholders, your board members, your governing body, your trustees, your administrators. You need to communicate the change, you need to execute the change, and you need to course correct. Because in strategic terms, the time when you make a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan on the basis of certain assumptions that will not change, that's gone. Today, the change is coming so fast that strategy is more and more evolving to be a dynamic process of experimentation. And this is based on some work done by Don Sult from Harvard, but he says it's a continuous process where you make sense of what's happening, you make choices, you do it, and then you make revisions, and it's a continuous process of tweaking what you do. So it calls for a completely different skill set, a skill set where you have an organization where you empower people to experiment and learn within certain constraints of values that you find, as opposed to yesterday's reality where the boss said, jump, everybody said, yes, boss, how high do you want us to jump? Completely different world. So, so far, am I on track? And just to skip, am I on track? Is it making sense so far? Everything I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Fine.
Thank you. So a couple of questions now. We will say, into this whole big picture. What is the scope of luck? And we say it all the time. Thank you, Obaid. Thank you for that comment. You'll say, what's the role of luck? We often say it, right? He was so lucky. She was not lucky that time. We say it, I got lucky. I was unlucky. Why did COVID-19 have to happen now? God, you hate me so much. You say it or not? I say it. So I hope you say it because I don't want to be left out and be a minority here. So COVID-19, it's a bad luck event. It's happened. What do we do with it? Now, it's difficult to measure luck when it comes to individuals. Now, Jim Collins, the author of several books, one of the books is By Choice, actually did a study on luck for companies. Because for a company, it's easy to measure good luck and bad luck. If I have a company and my factory burns down, it's my bad luck, it's my competitor's good luck. If my competitor's factory burns down, it is bad luck, it's my good luck. And both are reported in the annual report. So you can actually measure how much good luck you had, how much bad luck you had. What he found was over a 20-year period, all companies had the same number of good luck events and the same number of bad luck events. What made the difference between great companies and not so good companies was not how many good luck events or bad luck events they had, but what they did when the event happened. When the good luck event happened, were you prepared? Did you have the capacity to take advantage and get market share? When the bad luck event happened, did you have the resilience to recover from that bad luck event and bounce back quickly? The same is true for human beings as well. Unless you have really bad karma, in which case I recommend a different strategy to you, which I believe is very effective, which is this one. All of us are going to have good luck events and bad luck events in our lives. What is important is that you prepare for that in advance. And when that happens, for a while, for 24 hours, it's okay to, curse God, curse your boss, curse your organization, fight with God, go get drunk, do what you have to. But after that, say, okay, so now this has happened. What can I control? What can I do? What's my response to the threat to survive in the short term? How can I make this an opportunity to start to create a new growth path for myself? Whether the threat is created by technology or artificial artificial intelligence or anything. COVID-19 is a threat, is a black swan event that's affecting all of us. Okay, how long it's going to last, we don't know. Chances are it's going to last at least a year, maybe longer before the vaccine comes. So we have to prepare. What's important to know? Everybody is in the same boat. And this is leading to some fundamental changes in behavior, whether it's teaching, whether it's interacting, social interaction, wearing masks, whatever. These changes in behavior will not go away, even after the COVID crisis goes away. So how do you first survive short-term threat response, second, convert it and make it an opportunity so you can actually grow while everybody else is saying, oh my God, Bhagwan, mujhe aise kyun kiya, COVID kyun kiya? Let them do that. You look for the opportunity, right? So let me get back to the presentation and the last few charts that I had to share with you, which is very important. Let me start broadcast. Start broadcast. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that's it. So here we go. We talked about luck and black swan events. So now we're coming to the agenda point number 3. What is the implication for education and educators? So there are some changes already happening in the education space. The rise of online webinars like this. We know that in India, the Department of Education has already mandated for all universities a 20% digital content. This mandation was done last year before COVID-19 happened. After COVID-19 has happened, a lot of schools have shifted to 100% digital. Yeah, a lot of universities have shifted. So in ISB, first semester for the incoming batch is 100% online, 100% online, right? There are a rise of alternative freemium models, whether it's Byju's, Khan Academy, Coursera, edX, Upgrad. There are so many names out there. Many are free, some are paid, and some are completely online, some are hybrid. There are new models out there, and each with its own challenges and opportunities. A free model like Coursera normally has completion rates of 12%, 12%. Yeah, a paid model tends to have higher completion rates, and it has its own challenges. So how do you monitor the rigorousness of grading? How do you give the certification? It brings all kinds of new challenges. As far as the classroom is concerned, increasingly classrooms are getting inverted. Instead of the teacher coming and lecturing and saying, here's homework, the teacher makes the lecture in advance, okay? And people see the lecture in advance and come to the class, and the class is where you do the homework, which more is a discussion-based. We actually work on solutions. And when you're listening to pre-recorded lectures, increasingly people are moving to superstar faculty communicators. Imagine if you could have Richard Feynman in your classroom teaching physics. So you have a fabulous lecture by Richard Feynman. Everybody watches before they come to class, and in class you discuss the implications of what he said. So the classroom is getting inverted. This is happening. It's real. It's happening now. In ISB, as I said, semester 1, we've already moved to 100% online, and we are more and more moving to blended learning. The Economist had a very nice article before the COVID crisis, where the Economist basically said the MBA is dead. It's not me saying it, economists said this. And worldwide, in fact, what they found is in the US in the last 2 years alone, 10 top business schools have closed down. Because the future is not so much this one-time learning, but the future belongs to lifelong learning. And lifelong learning where the learning is actually unbundled. So people then say, I don't want a full MBA, I just want a leadership module. I just want to learn about finance or just about marketing. So that unbundling option. So this landscape is ever evolving. So if ISB or Harvard were to stick and say, we will do things the way we've always done, then we wouldn't survive. We have to be agile in experimenting, in creating new learning opportunities. So we have experimented already before the crisis, and we have created a very nice, for example, a business certification program with Punjab Engineering College, PEC in Chandigarh, which is very successful. And we are looking at more such initiatives that we can actually roll out. And I will give full credit also to the leaders at PEC who had the vision to start to play this experiment together with us before there was a need to do that. We were ahead of the curve. We are trying to be ahead of the curve and go forward in this space. So this brings us finally to the role of teachers. The role of teachers, more and more, is going to be to facilitate learning, not to teach. Because learning is going to happen a lot from communities, a lot from internet, a lot by learning new stuff and learning by trying and failing. So teaching or regurgitating information is no good if nobody is learning. The role of teachers is not to test, but to stimulate curiosity. If they are curious, they will learn. I don't know how many of you know this. In Harvard Business School, all exams are open book. All. Okay? You can consult anybody you want. So the way we are testing people is also changing. In the IIT entrance examination, we want to know what is the speed of light to 8 decimal places. How is that relevant anymore when you can just look up that on Google? What's more relevant is to see, now this is the speed of light, what do I do with it? So that's a different way to look at it. So our role as teachers is to mentor, to coach, to guide, to inspire and prepare our students and society for this new emerging reality. The dominant culture of teaching worldwide, not only in India, particularly in India, actually focuses not on learning, but on testing. And testing does have a place. It's diagnostic. It helps learning. It facilitates a meritocracy. All of this is very important. But evolving, it doesn't prepare people with the skills. It is not enough. Okay? It is necessary, but it's not sufficient. We need to move beyond that to have new skills, and that is our role as leaders going into this new reality. To summarize our learnings, we talked, learning number 1, change or die, disrupt or die. That's the first challenge. Second, we talked about what are the jobs for the future. And indeed, AI will even create further disruptions. So then, the skills of the future, the most important skill we need is learning agility, ability to learn lifelong, and emotional intelligence. Okay. Fourth, we talked about what are the successful responses to disruption, a threat response and an opportunity response. You need both. Yeah. 5, we talked about what is the key responsibility of a leader or teacher. It is to prepare the organization for change, to prepare society for change, to prepare our students to win in the new reality. We talked about how to prepare the organization for change, how to do this experimentation-based learning model. And finally, we talked about what is the new expanded role of teachers. Having said this, I now open up, I ask you 2 more things, then I'll open up for question and answers. Be focused on these things. Individually, at the end of this session, I would like you to take 10 minutes, no more. And in 10 minutes, just list 3 things, only 3 things you will do next week as a result of what you learned today from your own insight, from your own thinking. Because the research shows that when you, having learned something new in the first 1 week, if you don't change, then there is a very little chance that you will ever change. Whatever the 3 things are, I'll go on YouTube and I'll, look for some new, yeah, that's fine. That's an action. 3 things, okay? And how you, as an individual, will develop your own leadership skills and prepare yourself to survive and prosper in this new reality. And then ask yourself also the question, what can you do to lead society in this disruptive new reality that is coming of us? So with that, I stop my presentation and I open up for questions. All right. So can we have some questions? And I need somebody's help to help coordinate. Dr. Neha Gulati, how does emotional intelligence stand today as a result of AI and online teaching? Well, yeah, look, you tell me. It is, I'm a little bit removed from the education field in India. I'm involved in the business education, but we're already talking to fairly mature individuals who have been through the undergraduate and so on, and have also worked for 3-4 years. But indeed, when I look at our competitive exam situation, I look at behaviors of Indian managers when they go overseas, behaviors of Indian managers when they enter a company. There are people who succeed and do very well, and people who don't. And normally, it is not the most intelligent to do well, because the most intelligent, they walk into a meeting and they know, I'm smarter than you are. Boss ko kuch nahi aata. Kitna bevkoof hai boss. And they'll go and tell the boss, you're a bevkoof. He has any career in the company. So people need to learn emotional intelligence. So how do you work with people who are not as intelligent as you are? And indeed, what I see more and more when I look at Indians who succeed globally, and there are a number of them, they are able to retain the intellectual sharpness and rigor that they have. They're able to learn new skills and develop emotional intelligence and the ability to work in teams, and especially the ability to work across cultures. Any other questions? Sukhwinder Singh had a lot of questions. Let me see. Opportunity for teachers to contribute in stimulating practical insights. Yes. We need effective MOOCs with the check of quality. Absolutely right. And we also need effective testing protocols to maintain the quality and integrity of degrees that we award. Yeah, spot on. Good observations. But can I request for assistance from maybe Mr. Arun Dhawan to help me collate the questions, because it's not easy for me to look at questions and to answer at the same time. Internet connectivity. Yeah, please.
I would request the participants who want to raise queries or questions, they should click on raise your hands so that we can identify. And then you can go on. The participant who wants to make a comment or question should go on with the question. Speak up.
So Jatinder Kaur has raised the hand. So let's go with her.
Yes, please. Jatinder, please.
After that, Sudhir Baweja.
Yes. Jatinder,
yes, I want to know the role of robotics more in the, as you said, in the industry side.
Well, robotics is something that's going to come. Can you mute yourself, please? Yeah, thanks. So robotics is something that's going to come. And it's going to come simply because it's so much more practical and efficient. And robots can be repurposed, multi-purpose, and they're also evolving. There's a lot of development happening there all the time. So, when Apple moved its manufacturing for Apple iPhones away from China back to the US, they did move the manufacturing back to the US, but they didn't create too many jobs as a result of it, because a lot of the factories were completely automated. So this is happening. It's happening under our noses. So will robotics be an important field of study in the future? Absolutely. Yes, it will be. But there will be fewer and fewer such opportunities, right? There was somebody else.
Professor Sudhir.
Yeah, Sudhir, yes.
Professor Nandu, it was really wonderful talking to you. Listening to you, first of all, and you really took around the world. But I, as a teacher, I feel we all teaching fraternity, we are facing a lot of resource crunch. We have a problem of change mindset. We don't have a change culture around. We don't have a change infrastructure around. So that's the big challenge with us. So just because you belong to a different world. So
I agree.
Just comment on this. Yeah, please.
Excellent question, Sudhir. I sympathize with you. The interesting insight is this: when you really look for transformative innovations, transformative innovations always seem to come from resource-constrained environments. So environments that are resource-rich normally are able to throw a lot of money on a problem, and they might come up with solutions occasionally just by trial and error, hit and miss. But a lot of truly disruptive thinking that often comes from resource-constrained environments. So all I can do is encourage you to create some kind of learning community with like-minded individuals and go out and do lots of little pilots and experiments. Because one of the problems with Indians just all over the world who are highly intelligent people, and that includes a lot of people in this audience, is we like to think, we like to sit back and we like to ideate and say, ye kaam karega, ye nahi karega, aisa karna chahiye. We like that, the discussion is what we enjoy. Instead, what this new reality is calling for is if you have an idea, don't ideate it to death. Go out and do it on a small scale. And it will fail, but figure out the parts that fail, fix it, right again. So that way of continuous experimentation and innovation is what works in resource-constrained environments. And that's why if you look at mobile commerce, which economy in the world has the highest percentage of GDP done with mobile commerce? It's not China, it's Switzerland, it's not the US, it's Kenya. Kenya has 30% of GDP, 30% of GDP that's done on mobile commerce. You think Kenya has a lot of resources? It's resource constrained, but a lot of trial and error and experimentation, and they have shown the way on that.
Navdeep Gill wants to make a point. Navdeep?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Navdeep.
Hello, sir. So I want to, virtual learning is good for 5th class to 10th class? I mean, that virtual learning.
Look, I think the best is to ask schools today because, almost all the private schools in India have already gone on to Zoom. And they are teaching on Zoom already live today. Okay, this is happening today. So best is to go and ask them in all ages. So ask them, how is it working from class 5 to class 10? Is it working well? Is it not working well? As I said, we can't intellectualize this to death. The live experiment is happening now. Go and find out what works, what doesn't work. And then what works, improve it. What doesn't work, change it. Dr. Neha Gulati. Yes, Neha, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Greetings, sir. Thank you for giving such a valuable insight. I personally feel that it is not a time that we have to think that we do not have the resources. Till the pandemic is over, we all should try to mitigate what all we can do, not only in teaching, in other scenarios also.
Correct.
So I would like to add something to the question that I asked you. Where do you think that emotional intelligence today stands in the realm of AI? And how do you think AI is going to exceed emotional intelligence, or it is emotional intelligence going to exceed AI?
Look, it's, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what is AI. Okay, there's artificial intelligence. So you can take a computer and you can teach it how to play chess. It can beat everybody else in how it plays chess. But you take that same computer and you say, you play tennis, it will be a complete failure until it has to go through a learning curve in that. So artificial intelligence tends to be very, very specialized in one particular area. And there are indeed interesting models which are trying to teach AI emotional intelligence cues, but they miss a lot because ultimately a lot of emotional intelligence is not based on words, but based on body language, tone of words, and gestures, and just the facial expressions. And you're reading into facial expressions what people are saying. So I think it's going to be a while before computers learn to be emotionally intelligent. Also, we have to distinguish between artificial intelligence, which is very specialized, and artificial general intelligence, which is what humans have. You can move from playing chess to playing tennis to teaching to doing something else seamlessly. That's a completely different capability, and that's probably at least 40, 50 years away, if at all computers can get there. That's an open debate at this point of time.
Yes, very true. I have an answer to this. Being a person from a computer science area, I gave a reply to that AI question with AI. I personally think that through AI, the teachers would be able to analyze the emotions of the students when they are teaching or delivering the content or when they are being tested, so that this would be helpful for the teachers to mitigate the content out of their delivery material. What is making stress to the students, what makes them happy. So this would be a chance that we can improve our study material according to that.
Well, absolutely. Look, if you can harness AI to improve the teaching experience, that's going to be one of the changes in this new era. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Dr. Manjeet Kaur wants to ask something.
Yeah.
Dr. Manjeet.
Yeah, Manjeet.
Next. Go to somebody else.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Is there a problem, Manjeet? Nirmal Singh? Nirmal Singh ji?
Sorry, ma'am, I don't want to ask any question. It's my mistake.
Okay. Next.
Okay. Thank you, Nirmal.
Vandana Mehra? Vandana? Do you want to ask? Vandana? Okay. Professor Nandkishore, can I ask you something? It was a brilliant presentation, and I'm so grateful. The way people have been connected with your talk shows how relevant you talked. As a teacher with an experience of more than 30 years, I feel like asking you that the digital classroom, can it substitute the live classroom experience from the perspective of a teacher? For instance, a teacher gets satisfaction when you are giving a live performance, which cannot be replaced. A teacher's performance on one day cannot be exactly the same on the second day, even if he or she is addressing the same syllabi or a topic, the same students, and so on. So therefore, would you derive the same kind of satisfaction, pleasure while talking in front of the screen in comparison to an experience where you are continuously, persistently getting feedback through the facial expressions, body language of the students and responding to them? There is a pressure. I can prepare a PPT and go on for years together. On the other hand, every time I enter a classroom, I have to prepare.
Correct. Very good question. And look, there are some things that an online environment can do better than face-to-face. There are a lot of things which a face-to-face environment can do better than online. So let me give you examples, particularly with new tools coming. So when we use Zoom, for instance, Zoom is something. So when I teach at London Business School or at Harvard or at Indian School of Business, we use Zoom. And with Zoom, we have this wonderful ability to facilitate interaction. So press of a button, I can create small group discussions, 5-6 people group discussions. They can discuss for 5 minutes and then they can come back and report their discussions, which is not possible to do in a physical classroom environment, because if I do a 5-minute group discussion, people have to go out, we lose 30 minutes on that. So there are some interactions and sharing which online facilitates very nicely. That's a positive. There are other areas, particularly as you mentioned, emotional intelligence and that dialogue and that interaction, which online cannot replicate when it comes to face-to-face communication. But there is a contra to that, which is when you're talking a live classroom and a face-to-face classroom, if you're lucky as a student to have a teacher who is passionate, who is able to engage, who is able to connect, you have a great learning experience. If you have a teacher who, for whatever reason, is uninterested or is bored, or his wife didn't speak to him nicely, so he's off mood the whole day, only thinking about that, how unfairly he was treated, then the class is going to be a lousy experience. So I personally believe that the future is going to belong to blended learning, where you have small learning snippets by the greatest lecturers in the world, which are those learning snippets people can do offline, and the online is where you come in and you engage with them. So it's a flipped classroom kind of experience. I personally believe that's going to be the way it's going to evolve. But look, I don't have a crystal ball. We will see how it's going to evolve. Because if you have a great lecture from Richard Feynman on physics, and I listen to that, I still need a class interaction with the teacher because I may not have understood what Richard Feynman said. So I need somebody to explain that and to hold my hand and to help through the exercises. So there is a role for both. And it's that blended model I personally believe is going to be a way that things will kind of evolve. And this creates additional ethical issues for society. Because if there are people who do not have access to bandwidth or technology in this new emerging reality, they will lose out. Look, it's not nice. I don't like it. And that's why I believe it's one of the most important priorities for civil society and government to make sure that the digital divide is bridged. It is being bridged. And we see with mobile telephones how much people are familiar and are able to use mobile telephones. It is coming. It is coming slowly but surely. But, I don't think we can turn back the tide of this technological progress. It's not going to stop just because we don't like it. It's going to happen regardless. And as a society, as a country, as a university, if we would like to be ahead of the curve, we have to embrace it.
Thank you. That was perfect.
Thank you.
Sanjeev Gupta, you want to ask something?
We have been talking of disruptions at a large scale post-COVID.
Yeah.
If I look at the disruptions which has happened pre-COVID, and we look at the employment opportunities for engineering graduates, 80% of them have been going to the IT sector after their graduation, irrespective of the stream. Do you think this scenario will change post-COVID?
I don't know. I don't know, Sanjeev. In general, there are some trends that are happening because of COVID. We see almost anything that is consumed in your home, whether it's food, whether it's hygiene, whether it's entertainment, news, internet connectivity, anything that's consumed in home, demand has gone up through the roof, and companies are struggling with how to keep up to supply. Anything that is consumed out of home, whether it's travel, entertainment, restaurants, all of those have collapsed. Deutsche Bank, Lufthansa has to get $11 billion bailout from the government. Cathay Pacific gets a $5 billion bailout from the government. Otherwise, they don't survive. So are these industries going to come back in a hurry? I don't think so. So on an industry level, there are winners and losers. On an industry level, there are new industries coming up, particularly to those to do with masks and personal protective equipment. And particularly, so one of my startups, can you mute your mic, please, Sanjeev? Yeah. So one of my startups I'm advising a startup in Switzerland, which has actually created a face mask that is the only certified face mask in the world that kills the coronavirus, deactivates, let me use it technologically correct, deactivates the coronavirus. So their business is booming and they're doing really, really well and they're selling, So new technological innovations, and that, by the way, has been created in Switzerland by an Indian engineer. He's the CTO who's created this technological innovation. So there are sectors winning, sectors that are losing. So I can tell you sectoral shifts are underway, and these sectoral shifts will not reverse overnight after COVID. There are some fundamental changes that will stay, as people have discovered that I do not need to now fly to Los Angeles anymore to have a meeting. A lot of meetings are going to shift to online, and we will have the negatives of body language, etc. But we will make up in the time that we save. Engineers, look, I'm an engineer who went into management and didn't actually use my engineering education directly. I think there will still be a need for engineers in the high-tech industries. We talked about robotics, AI, new tech for biotech, for example, like this mask thing. There will be a need, and there will be a need for smart engineers who are able to work in teams, who are able to do creative stuff. But equally, our people, engineers who don't get into those streams, have to be willing to refocus and shift into other areas where softer skills will start to be more important.
Thank you. We'll take a few more questions. Himani Prashar. Himani Prashar.
Yeah, Sanjeev, can you mute your mic, please? Himani, please.
Himani, are you going to ask?
We can't hear you, Himani. You want to type your question?
Hello?
I don't think, yeah, we can't hear her.
Professor Nandkishore, we had a treat. This was a real treat to listen to you. And
thank you.
This was a very complimentary to the earlier talk that was given by Dr. Goel. And I'm very glad that you gave us very useful tips to cope with the situation that is coming up rather than running away from it. And you're right that teachers have to be leaders. Teachers have to equip, train their students for the new roles that are coming up. And we cannot be, keeping to yesterday. There is inertia, there's no doubt, but we have to come out of it. So it was wonderful listening to you, and it was wonderful to have a large number of participants who were glued to the screens. Thank you very much. And now,
thank you. Can I close with a quotation from one of my favorite books?
Yes. You please do that. And before I close, I'll request our Secretary, PUTA Secretary, Professor J.K. Goswami, to propose a vote of thanks to you. But over to Dr. Nandkishore. Yes, please do that.
So, thank you. So this is a quote from the Tao Te Ching, which is 3,000 years old. And here's the quotation. It says, when the master leads, the people are hardly aware that he exists. Next best is a leader who is loved. Next best is a leader who is feared. The worst is one who is despised. If you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. The master doesn't talk, he acts. When his work is done, the people say, amazing, we did it by ourselves. So that's from the Tao Te Ching. And I leave you with the thought that you have to be leaders, not just for your students, but for society. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Nandkishore ji. This was a very enlightening and motivating, as well as a very stimulating talk for whole of the teaching community. And it has really given us a way that under this critical situation, how we'll have to take our profession forward. Thanks a lot for this. I also thank all the audience who have been very active and gripped to the talk till the last word. So I thank all of them. Thank you.